Hey there, it is your garden Staudinger again, and today we are talking about a topic that makes thousands of lawns, flower beds, and vegetable patches suffer needlessly every single year. You know the exact feeling. It is April. The sun finally comes out, the birds are chirping, the thermometer suddenly hits 60 degrees for the very first time in months, and suddenly a switch flips in the brain of every single homeowner on the block. Suddenly everybody loses their absolute minds. You look out your window on a Saturday morning, and it is absolute chaos. You've got the neighbor on the left dragging out loud machinery, revving up his tiller in a cloud of blue smoke. The neighbor on the right is frantically throwing down handfuls of bright blue chemicals onto a lawn that looks like a wet brown doormat. Down the street, people are backing out of their driveways, practically burning rubber to get to the nearest garden center before all the petunias are sold out. It is spring fever. It is a biological imperative. We have been cooped up all winter, staring at grey skies, and now we just want to get our hands dirty. We want green, we want flowers, we want life, and we want it right now. But here is the problem. While you are out there in your t-shirt, buzzing with caffeine and sheer gardening adrenaline, ready to conquer the backyard, your plants are experiencing something completely different. If you could actually hear your garden right now, the lawn, the soil, the dormant shrubs, they are not cheering you on. They are looking at you horrified, thinking, bro, I just woke up from hibernation. I am barely conscious, the ground is freezing, and you are coming at me with shears and a bag of nitrogen. Please put the trowel down. If you want a lush, beautiful, stress-free garden this summer, I need you to listen very carefully. Today, we are going over the 7 absolute worst things you can do in April. I'm going to give you things to stop doing immediately and exactly what you should be doing instead. Make sure you stick around until the end, because the very last point is the one that drains your wallet the fastest and breaks your heart the hardest. If there is one core truth you take away from me today, let it be this. The biggest mistake in spring isn't doing too little. It is doing too much, too early. Timing is everything. So take a breath, leave the lawnmower in the shed for a minute, and let's get into it. Mistake number 1. The Great Tomato Rush, or as I like to call it, the annual sacrifice of the warm weather crops. Every April, the big box stores roll out the racks of tomato plants, peppers, eggplants, and cucumbers. They are lush, they are green, some of them even have little yellow flowers on them already. You see them, you panic that they will sell out, you buy a dozen, you bring them home, and you stick them straight into the garden soil. The air temperature was lovely today, so why not? Here is why not. You are essentially taking a toddler who has spent their entire life in a cozy, 75-degree heated living room, stripping them down to a bathing suit and tossing them into a freezing cold swimming pool, expecting them to swim a marathon. Those plants were raised in a climate-controlled, artificially lit greenhouse. They have never felt the wind, and they have certainly never felt cold dirt. You might think it is warm outside because you are standing in the sun, but air temperature means absolutely nothing to a root system. It is all about the soil temperature. In April, the soil is still holding on to the deep chill of winter. It is damp, it is dense, and it is cold. When you put a heat-loving plant like a tomato into cold soil, the biology simply shuts down. The roots literally paralyze. The plant goes into extreme shock. A few days later, you will walk out and notice the leaves are turning a sickly purplish yellow. You will panic, thinking it needs fertilizer. It does not. The purple color is a phosphorus deficiency, not because there is no phosphorus in your soil, but because the cold soil has locked it up, and the shivering roots cannot absorb it. The plant just sits there, stunting its own growth. And here is the real kicker. If you wait just 3 or 4 weeks until May, when the soil has actually warmed up, and plant a fresh tomato then, it will grow so fast, it will completely overtake that poor, stunted, traumatized plant you rushed into the ground in April. So be patient. Do not plant your summer vegetables outdoors until all danger of frost has passed and the soil is dependably warm. Stick to your cool weather crops right now. Your radishes, your spinach, your peas, they love this chilly weather. Let the tomatoes wait. Let's move on to the second massive blunder. Mistake number 2, the fertilizer frenzy. This happens constantly, especially with lawns. The snow melts, the grass is looking a bit yellow and tired, and the immediate human reaction is, I need to feed it. I need to pump it full of nutrients right this second to force it to turn green. So you go out and you spread fertilizer everywhere like you are throwing Parmesan cheese on a hot pizza. But you have to understand how soil actually works. Your soil is not just dead dirt, it is a massive, living, breathing ecosystem filled with billions of microscopic bacteria, fungi, and microbes. These microbes are the chefs of the soil. When you put down an organic fertilizer, the plant cannot eat it directly. The microbes have to break that fertilizer down first, chew it up, and spit it out in a form that the plant's roots can actually absorb. But here is the problem with April. Those microbes operate entirely based on temperature. Right now, the soil is cold, the microbes are asleep, they are hitting the snooze button. Throwing fertilizer down in cold April soil is like setting up an enormous, expensive all-you-can-eat buffet at 4 o'clock in the morning, but none of the guests are awake and nobody has any cutlery. The food just sits there. The plants cannot use it because their roots are barely active and the microbes aren't awake to process it. So what happens? The spring rains come, and all that expensive fertilizer just washes right past the root zone, leaching down into the groundwater or running off into the storm drains. You are literally flushing your money down the drain and polluting the local waterways in the process. And if you are using high-nitrogen synthetic fertilizers to force the grass to wake up unnaturally fast, you are forcing the plant to push out tender, weak, watery top growth at the exact moment it should be spending its limited energy repairing its root system from the winter. Stop force-feeding your garden in April. Wait until the soil temperature is consistently above 55 degrees Fahrenheit and the grass is actively growing and needing a haircut on a regular basis. That is the signal that the soil biology is awake, the buffet is open, and the plants are ready to eat. If you absolutely must do something for your soil in April, top dress it with a thin layer of high-quality compost. Compost does not force growth. It slowly conditions the soil, introduces beneficial biology, and gently prepares the bed for the season ahead. And speaking of the lawn, let's get right into mistake number 3, the infamous spring scalping. Oh, the sound of lawnmowers in April. It is a beautiful sound, but what people do with those mowers is an absolute crime. You have been waiting all winter to mow. The grass finally puts on an inch of growth and you decide you are going to give it a fresh, clean start. You drop the mower deck down to the absolute lowest setting and you shave that lawn down to the dirt. You think you're cleaning it up. You think you're getting rid of the dead winter fluff so the sun can reach the soil. Let's look at this from the grass's perspective. Every single green blade of grass is a tiny solar panel. That is how the plant feeds itself. Through photosynthesis, it captures the spring sunlight, creates sugars, and sends that energy down to rebuild its root system after the trauma of winter freezing. When you scalp the lawn in early spring, you are walking up to a house that is desperately trying to generate power, and you are taking a sledgehammer to all of its solar panels. The grass goes into immediate panic mode. It has no way to make food, so it has to tap into its emergency reserve of carbohydrates stored in the roots just to stay alive and push out new blades. This exhausts the plant. It weakens the root system right before the brutal heat of summer arrives, which is exactly when you need deep, strong roots the most. Furthermore, by buzzing the grass down to the soil, you have just opened the door for your worst enemies. Weed seeds. Crabgrass and dandelions have been sitting in the soil all winter waiting for one thing: sunlight. When you have a nice, thick, tall canopy of grass, it acts like a shade umbrella, keeping the soil cool and dark so weed seeds cannot germinate. When you scalp the lawn, you strip away that umbrella. The sun hits the bare soil, heats it up, and bam! You have a dandelion explosion by May. Do not scalp your lawn. When you do that first mow of the year, make sure your mower blade is razor sharp and set the deck high. Only take off the very top third of the grass blade. Let it keep its solar panels, let it shade the soil. A taller lawn is a healthier, deeper-rooted, more drought-resistant and weed-free lawn. Stop giving your grass a military buzz cut just because you are bored on a Saturday. Which brings us to mistake number 4, and this one makes me wince every time I see it. The spring pruning massacre of the flowering shrubs. People wander out into the yard with their shiny, freshly oiled pruning shears. They look at their forsythia, their lilacs, their rhododendrons, and their azaleas. The bushes look a little wild, a little overgrown from last year, so they start hacking away, shaping them into perfect little green meatballs or neat little squares. And then, a few weeks later, they look over the fence at the neighbor's yard, which is exploding in massive, glorious, vibrant spring blooms, while their own perfectly shaped shrub is completely bare, with maybe 1 or 2 pathetic flowers struggling to open on the bottom, and they wonder, what is wrong with my soil? Why isn't my bush blooming? I will tell you exactly why. You cut off all the flowers. Spring flowering shrubs operate on a completely different schedule than summer flowering shrubs. Shrubs that bloom in the spring, like forsythia and lilac, produce their flower buds during the summer and fall of the previous year. They set those buds on the old wood, they hold them tight all through the freezing winter, and they wait for the spring sun to finally open them. When you go out in March or April and prune those branches, you are snipping off thousands of tightly wound, invisible flower buds that the plant spent months creating. It is exactly like working overtime for a whole year, finally receiving your massive Christmas bonus check, and then immediately throwing it into the paper shredder before you can deposit it. All that hard work completely destroyed in 5 seconds of mindless snipping. If a shrub blooms in the spring, you absolutely do not touch it with shears until immediately after the flowers have faded and dropped off. That is your window. Once it finishes blooming, prune it so it has the rest of the summer to grow new wood and set new buds for next year. Leave the shears in the shed right now, put your hands in your pockets, and just admire the architecture of the branches. Let's get to the 5th mistake. Mistake number 5. The mud wrestling match. Or more technically, tilling, digging, and working wet spring soil. You want to get your vegetable beds ready. You want to plant a new perennial border. You take your spade, or worse, your motorized rototiller, and you drive it right into soil that has been soaking up snowmelt and spring rain for the last 3 months. It feels satisfying, right? Churning up the earth, turning over the dark clumps. But biologically and structurally, you are committing a cardinal sin of soil science. Good, healthy garden soil is not just a solid mass of dirt. It is actually 50% empty space. It is a matrix of tiny aggregates held together by glues produced by fungi and bacteria. Between those little clumps of soil are millions of microscopic pores, tunnels, and air pockets. Roots need oxygen just as desperately as they need water. If roots don't have air, they suffocate and rot. When soil is heavily saturated with spring rain and you go in there and step on it, dig it, turn it, or hit it with a tiller, you're taking that beautiful, airy structure and utterly destroying it. Think about baking a gorgeous, fluffy, delicate sponge cake. It is full of air. Now imagine taking that cake out of the oven, dumping a cup of water on it, and kneading it with your hands. What happens? It turns into a dense, heavy, solid block of dough. That is exactly what you're doing to your garden. You are squeezing all the oxygen out of the soil, smearing the clay particles together, and compacting it into a solid brick. When the sun finally comes out in May and dries that soil out, it will literally turn into concrete. Plant roots will not be able to penetrate it, water will pool on the surface, and your plants will be miserable all summer long. How do you know if the soil is too wet to work? Do the squeeze test. Take a handful of soil from your garden bed and squeeze it tightly into a ball in your fist. Now, poke that ball with your finger. If it shatters and crumbles apart easily, you are good to go. The soil is dry enough, but if it stays together in a tight, sticky, muddy lump, like modeling clay, step away from the garden bed. Do not dig it. Do not walk on it. Just wait. Let the wind and the sun do their job. Be patient. Your plants will thank you for giving them fluffy, breathable soil rather than a subterranean prison cell. Moving right along to mistake number 6, frost denial, also known as trusting the weather forecast implicitly and getting burned for it, or rather, frozen for it. We have all been there. It is late April. We have had 5 glorious days in a row of 70-degree weather. You are wearing shorts, the grill is out. You have finally planted those delicate little seedlings you raised on your windowsill. You look at your phone's weather app and it says the overnight low will be 38 degrees. You think 38? That is above freezing. We are completely fine. The danger has passed. And then you wake up the next morning. You step out onto the back porch with your coffee and you look at your garden. Your beautiful, perky little pepper plants are slumped over, black, mushy, and completely dead. What happened? What happened is that you forgot about microclimates and radiant heat loss. The weather station that tells you it is going to be 38 degrees is located at an airport miles away, measuring the air temperature 5 feet off the ground. But your garden is at ground level. On a clear, still, cloudless spring night, all the heat that the soil absorbed during the day radiates straight up into the atmosphere. Without a blanket of clouds to trap that heat, the temperature right at the surface of the soil, right where your delicate little seedlings are living, can easily drop 5 to 10 degrees colder than the official air temperature. Suddenly, your 38 degrees is 29 degrees at ground level. Frost forms. Frost is devastating. When the water inside the delicate plant cells freezes, it expands. It acts like millions of microscopic knives, tearing the cell walls apart from the inside. When the sun comes up and thaws them out, the cells collapse, turning the plant to mush. It is a total loss. Believing that a warm week in April means winter is over is like driving down the highway without a seatbelt just because you did not get into an accident yesterday. You are playing Russian roulette with the atmosphere. Do not ignore the threat of late spring frosts. Even if you are past your area's average last frost date, you need to be prepared. Keep a close eye on the sky. If the forecast calls for temperatures dipping anywhere into the low 40s and the night sky is clear with no wind, you need to take action. Keep a supply of frost blankets, horticultural fleece, or even just old bed sheets and cardboard boxes handy. Before the sun goes down, cover your vulnerable plants. Make sure the cover goes all the way down to the ground to trap the heat rising from the soil. Take it off in the morning when the sun comes up. It takes 10 minutes of effort, but it will save months of hard work and heartbreak. And finally, we arrive at mistake number 7, the ultimate April trap, the one that gets the best of us, drains our wallets, and leads to gardens that look completely chaotic by July. I am talking about going to the garden center without a plan and buying everything that happens to be blooming that very second. You walk into the nursery on a bright Saturday morning. It is a sensory overload. The aisles are packed with incredible, vibrant colors. The creeping phlox is neon pink, the bleeding hearts are dripping with flowers, the pansies are shouting at you to take them home. You did not come with a list, you came hungry for color. It is exactly like going grocery shopping on an empty stomach. You don't buy the chicken and the broccoli you actually need for the week. You buy 5 bags of potato chips, a gallon of ice cream, and a frozen pizza, because that is what looks good right in that moment. So you fill your cart with every single plant that is currently pushing a flower, you take them home, you find random empty spots in the dirt, and you shove them in. It looks amazing for about exactly 3 weeks. And then May rolls around. Those early spring bloomers drop their petals. They turn into completely ordinary green leafy mounds, and they stay that way for the next 11 months. Because you only bought plants that bloom in April, your garden spends June, July, August, and September looking like a boring, monotonous green jungle with absolutely zero color. The garden centers know exactly what they are doing. They force plants into bloom in their greenhouses so that they are bursting with color precisely on the weekend you show up with your credit card. They are selling you impulse and immediate gratification. But a beautiful, dynamic summer garden is not built on impulse. It is built on succession planting. When you go to the nursery in April, I want you to walk right past the tables of fully blooming spring plants. I want you to look for the plants that look boring right now. Look for the perennials that are just barely pushing green leaves out of their pots. The coneflowers, the black-eyed Susans, the asters, the sedums, the Russian sage. They do not look like much in April, they are sleeping. But if you plant them now, they will be establishing their roots, getting comfortable in your soil, and preparing to put on an absolute explosive show in midsummer and early fall, right when all your neighbors' gardens are looking tired, burnt out, and faded. You need a plan. You need to read the plant tags, check the bloom times. You want a symphony in your garden, where as soon as one instrument finishes its solo, another one picks up the melody. Buy a few things for spring color, sure, but spend the bulk of your budget on the late bloomers. Think long-term. Restrain yourself. Do not let the nursery dictate your garden's design based on what is shiny today. So, let's take a deep breath and summarize what we have learned today. The absolute golden rule of April gardening is restraint. Patience and timing will always beat blind action. Do not rush your warm weather tomatoes into freezing soil. Do not shove heavy fertilizer down the throats of sleeping soil microbes. Do not scalp your lawn and chop off its solar panels. Do not butcher your spring flowering shrubs before they have a chance to show you their beautiful blooms. Do not knead your wet garden soil into a solid brick of concrete. Never underestimate the silent, deadly sneak attack of a late spring frost. And for the love of everything green, do not buy your plants like a starving man in a grocery store. Listen to your plants. Feel the soil. Let the garden wake up at its own natural pace. You are a steward of a biological process, not a factory manager trying to meet a production quota. If you can simply hold your horses for a few more weeks and do things at the right time rather than the fastest time, you are going to have the most resilient, vibrant, and effortlessly beautiful summer garden you have ever seen. Now, if you are looking at your lawn right now and realizing you might have already made some of these massive mistakes, do not panic. I have got you covered. Which mistakes actually ruin the lawn the most, and how do you fix them before summer hits? You need to watch this video right here, where I break down the exact rescue plan for a struggling spring lawn. Or if you want to know the absolute best things you actually should be planting right now in these cooler temperatures, click on this video over here. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our seasonal deep dives, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for being here, and happy patient gardening.